Welcome to this latest edition of Europe Now, where we're also saying happy anniversary to our host country. It's 100 years since Estonia declared itself an independent state, along with its bigger neighbours Latvia and Lithuania. Well, let's give you some other key dates as well. In 1991, Estonia emerged from the collapsing Soviet Union. In 2004, it joined both NATO and the EU. In 2007, the Schengen zone, and in 2011, the Eurozone. Today, Estonia is known as a digital powerhouse, and it's got one of the fastest growing economies in Europe. We're going to be meeting some of the 1.3 million ordinary Estonians, artists, innovators and decision makers. Starting right at the top, we're heading off to the presidential castle to meet President Kersti Kaljulaid. President Kaljulaid, thank you very much for having us, and happy centenary for Estonia as well. How would you characterise Estonia at 100 years since the independence declaration?
Estonia is a country which feels quite secure in the European family and also proud to contribute to the European development by our digital advancements, contribute to European security by our good understanding of the security situation in the region, and also by our quite good defense spending, which goes above 2%, and also by our wonderful education system. We rank very high in PISA tests, comparable to Finland only in Europe.
Now, I know that you spoke earlier this year about President Putin seeking to impose his authority by force. There have been military manoeuvres by Russia and by NATO in the region recently. Do you see Russia as a threat to Estonia?
Well, if you ask, do I think that Russia will attack NATO territory, then the answer is no. But I think it doesn't mean that we should not understand that we have an unpredictable neighbor. Think of Salisbury incident, for example. So in this sense, we have to be vigilant and follow what is going on. We do also spend quite a lot, as I already said, to guarantee that Article 3 of NATO is fulfilled, ability to protect yourself.
NATO has been called into question somewhat over the last few months by Donald Trump. Do you believe that NATO does still have Estonia's back?
Definitely, NATO is a functional organization, and also this summer the declaration of the summit took several steps forward to make sure that now when NATO has again had to prop up its defense capacity, for example, northeast, it is also able to follow with its command structure to make sure that what we have here is really efficient and effective and really ready to fight tonight.
There was a major cyber attack in Estonia carried out from Russia 10 years ago. How well equipped do you feel Estonia is now to deal with attacks like this, and also Europe?
Attacks like these, every single digital system in every country actually treats every day nowadays. We need to understand the new risks and also deal with not only technical but legal aspects of what are the rights of the countries coming under attack. For that we have indeed this NATO cyber defense center here. And also we want to bring these topics into the United Nations Security Council. That is why we are running first time ever for the Security Council non-permanent membership.
There has been a recent story that's brought Estonia into the headlines, recent revelations about money laundering at the Estonian branch of a Danish bank, Danske Bank. Yes. Now, this was worth 200 billion euros, this money laundering, 9 times Estonia's GDP. Are you angry that this has happened in your country?
The Estonians had warned that this is going on, and these warnings were not heeded. So it took longer than it should have taken us, both Danish authorities, Estonian authorities, to end it, because there was a clear lack of quick cooperation, and I think we should all learn from this. It's not enough to just send letter and accept that you were not taken seriously.
So you're talking about holding executives to account, imposing serious fines on banks?
I hope there will be future analysis which will allow banks to understand that even in the changing security environment and even in the changing rules world of money laundering, if you abide by the basic principles of transparency and know your client, you will be safe.
Just back here in Estonia, then, one final subject. You temporarily moved your presidential office to the majority Russian city of Narva this autumn. Why did you do that, and what did you get out of it?
I think it's generally a good idea to move around and let people see how power functions elsewhere. Indeed, it is true that many people in Narva speak Russian language. By the way, they are not Russians, therefore always. They came during the Soviet era from all Soviet republics. So yes, their common denominator is Russian language. But by the way, their common denominator, therefore, is not that they all support current Russian government.
Well, thank you very much for your time, President Kersti Kaljulaid.
Thank you.
And we will stay with that very same theme. Our reporter Luke Brown has been to investigate deeper some of the attempts by the Estonian authorities to better integrate their Russian-speaking population.
Estonian language class for these elementary school children in Narva, the country's biggest Russian-speaking city. For younger pupils here, Estonian is taught as a foreign language. It's not until the final 3 years of high school that more than half their classes are taught in Estonian, but for many students, that's too late.
I would have preferred it from the very beginning, 50-50. Experience shows the kids are much more fluent.
Knowing Estonian is the best way to broaden your opportunities.
The de facto segregation of schools is born of necessity. More than 9 out of 10 Narva residents are native Russian speakers. But for the school's head teacher, that isolation leads to a brain drain.
I think we are losing these number of very good, talented people who choose to reside in some different places rather than Estonia and Narva in particular. It's good that the attention has been turned in recent years to Narva in particular, but I think we need to sort of do more.
At over 9%, unemployment here is twice the national average. Its factories have all slowly closed since the end of the communist era. Another legacy of Soviet times, Estonia's large Russian minority, a quarter of the national population. Almost 90,000 of them have so-called alien or grey passports, permanent residents but non-citizens. Vladimir Petrov works to help ethnic Russians with their paperwork in Russia. Like many, he's torn between the two nations.
I was born here. This is my motherland too. But in Russia, we have the expression of big motherland and small motherland. The country you belong to is your big motherland, which you love from a distance.
The Estonian government has sought to bridge that gap. In autumn 2018, President Kersti Kaljulaid temporarily relocated her office to Narva. And since 2015, the state media broadcasts a Russian-language channel, ETV+, to cater to Russian speakers and combat Moscow's influence.
This channel is mainly informing the Russian people who live in Estonia about everything which is happening in Estonia. The integration process, it's also the process to involve the Russian community to social life in Estonia.
Loyalty to Tallinn is the theme of ETV's weekly debate here. In September, Estonia arrested 2 men on charges of spying for Russia. For Kristina Kallas, the head of the trilingual Narva College University and co-founder of a new centrist political party, Narva still feels cut off from the rest of the country.
It's the work in progress in a sense that people here need to get adjusted to the new idea that they live in Estonia. If rest of Estonia is pretty much aware and they know what is Estonia, why this country exists, what for, then I think for people in Narva it's a much more blurred question.
For some, art and culture can help. The first edition of Station Narva Festival in September attracted headliners from Western Europe such as Tricky and Echo and the Bunnymen. For the organisers, Narva needs to look to the future and not the past.
As the industrial era is over and it's not going to come back in a shape or form how Narva has experienced it in the past decades, then the town is facing a moment where it needs to redefine what it wants to do. A festival is just an element in this. We're a tool for Narva to use to kind of find its future.
Estonia's government is nominating Narva as European Capital of Culture for 2024. The goal? Put Narva on the cultural map, as well as reverse a broader cycle of decline.
Well, you find us now at Narva's 13th century castle, actually built by the Danes, but as you can see just across the river behind me is Russia, and we are here to meet a Russian-Estonian MEP, Yana Toom. Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
with the Centre Party, which is currently leading the government.
Yes.
First, what's it like being both Russian and Estonian?
Oh, it's great. It's great. You belong to both cultures. You can be at home in both countries. It's fine.
Well, let's walk a little, leave Russia behind us somewhat. A question we keep hearing around Estonia is about how integrated the Russian-speaking minority is into this wider society.
Not very integrated, but the problem is that Estonians are not willing to integrate with Russians, frankly speaking.
Why?
Integrate to a certain extent. We have like generation of Estonians who don't speak Russian at all. Of course, it's their choice. But now it's improving. There is interest in Estonian schools to learn Russian, and Russian children and Russian young people are learning Estonian.
Many thousands of people here have what's known as grey passports, sort of neither nationality, but they can circulate freely in the EU and in Russia. They can't vote, but they have those other advantages. Can that situation really continue?
If you're an Estonian citizen, you can travel visa-free to 150 free countries. And if you have grey passport, you have only 15 countries to travel without visa. So this is not an advantage, you know. These people just did not qualify to get Estonian citizenship, and they choose this one. It was a temporary solution, but you know, the temporary things are really long-lasting sometimes.
Let's talk about some other domestic issues. There has been a certain amount of a brain drain from Estonia in recent years. How much of a concern is it for you?
Of course, we have all kinds of drains, brain and hands and other drains after we entered the European Union, due to the fact that we just are not used to live without Iron Curtain. But we're working on that. And for instance, in Estonia, we have really best in Europe system of parental leave. If you give birth to your baby, you get your salary for a year and a half. And if you do it here, you probably stay.
So are you optimistic for the future of Estonia, this very small member state on the edge of a bloc that is seeing certain political earthquakes at the moment?
In terms of population, only 1.3 million, which means that it is easy to implement good things, like, for instance, I don't know, digital society. It's much more easier to do it in a small country.
Well, thank you very much for speaking to us, Yana Team. It's nice to meet you. And as we speak about digital society, artificial intelligence is starting to come into Estonians' lives ever more. However, there are questions being asked about whether it's really for the good of society and whether the government is doing enough to protect its citizens. Check out this report from Luke Brown.
A kitchen garden, no matter where your kitchen is. Using LEDs and AI to optimise growing conditions, this mini vertical farm can produce up to 30 plants. But with its €10,000 price tag, Natufia isn't targeting local buyers, but markets in Dubai and the US.
The point there is for people to be able to grow plant home. Today in the cities, we're missing the natural touch. You know, I mean, we're not connected to nature anymore, and we don't have respect for food.
For Gregory Liu, the Frenchman who founded Natufia in 2014, Estonia is the ideal ecosystem for his startup.
We aim to go international, and I'm traveling a lot. And with Estonian, e-residency and things like that, it's very easy to just sign contract when you're on the other side of the world, to make bank transfers. So everything can be done remote.
Estonia suffered the world's first statewide hacking attack in 2007, meaning cybersecurity is part of everyday life. Estonians use their mobile phones as a secure digital ID. Up till now, the police had the final say in verifying identities. Now, a pilot program hands that responsibility to phone companies. This startup uses AI and facial recognition to ID customers.
The webcam in this situation is a bit like a virtual police officer. Machine and human both have their weaknesses. And what we would like to do with the system is we would like to mitigate as many of both of them as possible. So while a human makes their errors, the machine is supposed to cover for them and vice versa.
Estonia is also known as a world leader in innovative tech. Last year, driverless buses were tested in Tallinn, but AI's rise has not been matched by a legal framework, leaving doubts over liability in the case of accidents. The government is preparing a new law to define the legal responsibility of AI. Martin Kavertz is the National Digital Advisor.
Then if we can build a case study based on values and showing that privacy of a citizen is actually intact, then I think this is a vital case study for the whole globe. This can be a kind of a lighthouse to show that you can use this double-edged sword of technology in a good way as well.
Tech-led progress and digital security have seeped into almost every level of daily life. In the past year, Estonia expanded a vast gene testing program aiming to screen 15% of the population for free. The aim is twofold: inform the volunteers of the potential health risks and create a huge research resource of genetic material.
We have a patient here, a 36-year-old female, and some of her results that she got from genetic testing was that she has a high risk for type 2 diabetes. They explain what's the risk, how can you minimize it, and how is it helpful for you in the future, for yourself and also for your doctors.
The program aims to cut healthcare costs by tailoring preventative measures for individual citizens, but it also has to guarantee their privacy. The genetic data is not shared with the police or insurance companies.
What are people actually afraid of regarding their DNA? Data sharing and contributing your sample data for research helps us advance research, it helps us discover new associations and actually create better treatments for people.
In Estonia, cybersecurity has always been a very key enabler of this digital society, because you cannot have the digital society if you don't have stronger cybersecurity.
Estonia has embraced tech at every level. Its challenge for the future to balance innovation and making sure it's used responsibly.
Well, here we are right on the border between Estonia on this side and Russia. Over here you can see Ivangorod Fortress and the border crossing right behind me. In part 2 of our programme, we'll be back in Estonia's capital, Tallinn. We'll see you there.
Hi, I'm Natalie Savarikas, and you'll usually find me in news, reporting on Greece's enduring financial turmoil and protests, but also the refugee emergency, here on France 24.
Natalie Savarikas, one of the 160 France 24 correspondents around the world.